Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Snackbox. Hope you all are having a great day, guys. We have our first 10x for a Mythical Champion. Most of you probably already know. And it's the event dungeon boss, Kurosa. And yeah, I will give you my thoughts on this and my opinion on this champion. There are only 22 Mythical Champions at this moment in the summoning pool. So with Corrosa having 10 copies, you will have a total amount of 32 Mythical Champions in the summoning pool, and 10 of these will be Kurosa. There are more Mythicals in the game, but you can't pull Carnage, you can't pull Embers. The amount of Mythical Champions you can pull is really, really low. 32 Mythical Champions divided by 10, because it's a 10x, will be at a chance of 32%. If you hit that Mythical Champion, you have a 32% chance that it's Corrosa. So the chance is actually pretty high. Now, would I prefer this champion over, let's say, a Galathir, Nice, and so on, all these top tier champions that are, dominating in pretty much all of the content? Some, like Nice, are only good for Arena, for example, maybe Faction Wars Hard too, but you get what I'm saying. So I would probably not prefer to pull her over them. I think she's still a solid champion. First of all, we're going to talk about her kit and how I think she will be performing in Arena. How can she be used there? And then we're going to talk about PvE as well. So her first form is a support form. She has a heal on A1. It's an AoE attack. She can remove debuffs. She can cleanse and places increased attack and shield on all allies for 2 turns. The value of the shield is proportional to this champion's attack. This is a very unique skill, because I think it's the first shield skill that is based on the attack, and she actually does have quite a high base attack. If we check that on the index, let me see real quick. So 1509. There are some champions that have higher attack, but her second form is the attack form. So this is the support form that already has like 1500 attack, which is quite high. Also, the HP is not really low. Defense is kind of on the lower side. 110 speed is actually pretty solid. 15% crit rate, 50% crit damage, 50 resistance. So nothing crazy down there, but 110 speed is pretty fast, and attack and HP are quite high on this form. So yeah, she's self-buffing, and she places a shield based on the attack. So she increases her attack, and the shield will be bigger because of the increased attack as well. And it's based on attack, right? Then she has that Taunt buff and the Fortify buff, which is a new buff. I think it's the only champion so far that has this buff. And also places an unkillable buff on all allies except this champion for 2 turns. Now, this is kind of like the one thing that I don't like, that she doesn't place unkillable on her, which is kind of weird, but it is what it is. So now let's take a look what Fortify does. Fortify basically reduces an enemy ignore defense effect by 15 or 25%, and this one reduces it by 25%. So she will be tanky, but let's be honest, I don't think you want to build her tanky. I don't think you want to use this first form. I don't think it's that good. I think the better form is the second form, where she deals a lot of damage. This form is kind of like not really convincing me that it's going to be, insane. Yes, she does place shield. Yes, she does place unkillables and taunts and fortify and all that, but you can basically just strip all these buffs, and it's not really like, if I play it out in my head, it's not really game changing. Maybe it's good for PvE content, for Faction Wars Hard, for, dungeons. I can see her being useful there, but so are other legendary champions. Now, if we take a look at the passive here, it's a passive effect. I mean, we all kind of encountered this passive already in the event dungeon. Once the allies are dead, she instantly transforms into the alternate form. Whenever all the allies are dead. You can actively swap forms, and also, if she's the last one standing, she will also transform into the other form. So yeah, this form, I don't know. I'm not really convinced by this form, but I also think it doesn't really matter because, in my opinion, she shines in this second form. This is probably where you want to use her for arena, probably as well for PvE. So the first thing that I noticed is the A1 that is based on attack and enemy max HP. A free hitter on an A1 with enemy max HP damage, that's insane to me. If this hits hard, and it probably will, this might be really a game changer for a lot of people that struggle with boss fights. Hydra, maybe. Chimera, I can see her being good there as she provides a lot of buffs and debuffs, and she has enemy max HP hits. So yeah, I can see her work there. But let's see. So this attack hits one enemy 3 times, and if this attack kills an enemy, deals pure damage to all other enemies, which is kind of interesting because the way it works with the passive. If the other enemies are not bosses or minions, the amount of pure damage dealt is equal to 30% of the initial target's max HP. If the other enemies are bosses or minions, the pure damage dealt is equal to 10% of their max HP instead. This attack cannot be critical. So she can crit with the free hitter, but the pure damage that she deals to all other enemies cannot be critical. Pure damage means that there's no damage mitigation whatsoever. No defense will be considered here, no buffs whatsoever. Maybe buffs, maybe strengthen does work, I don't know. But pure damage basically means you have 100% defense ignore on this damage. So yeah, as I said, enemy max HP damage on a free hitter on an A1, no cooldown. So if you use it with an ally attack, I think this can be really a game changer for a lot of dungeons to speedrun them. And it sounds amazing. And as we all know, in the event dungeon, it does do a lot of damage. So on the A2, we have this AoE attack, and before attacking, she steals all buffs from all enemies, and targets whose attack is lower than this champion's attack cannot resist this effect. So basically, she will strip your whole team without a problem because you will probably build her with, tons of attack. She has 1,641 base attack, which is quite a lot. And it doesn't matter if you have a Galateer or whatever with 900,000 resistance, it doesn't matter. She will just strip all the buffs. Also places a 25% weaken debuff on all enemies for 2 turns, and this debuff can also not be resisted, so you don't have to build her with any accuracy whatsoever. You just build her with the highest attack possible. Actually, a very interesting skill. And, an AoE weaken that cannot be resisted, and also a buff strip that cannot be resisted. Sounds very good. But then again, this also makes you really vulnerable for sheep blessings. I think she will be a sheep magnet, but if you don't face sheep blessings in the arena, I think she can do some work. And on the A3, we have this new buff, which is kind of like the mirrored buff of the Fortify. It's reducing the ignore defense effects from enemies, and Shatter increases your own ignoring defense effect. So she will basically have an additional 15% defense ignore with this buff. And this is, I think, very, very interesting because you can probably get away with not building her with lethal or savage, because you can give her a cat's gaze, you can give, she will have the shatter buff, and that's already, you can get up to like 30-35% defense ignore, which is kind of a lot. Now if you build her with lethal, she will ignore even more and hit way harder. Also, she buffs herself with a crit rate buff, so theoretically, you could build her with 70% crit rate and just pump up her attack even more, because you will also get an extra turn at the end. But before that, she places a true fear on all enemies, and again, targets whose attack is equal to or lower than this champion's attack cannot resist this effect. So again, another debuff you can get sheeped for. So that's probably the biggest downside for this champion. The amount of debuffs she puts out. I don't think this true fear is benefiting you in the arena. I think for Chimera, for example, this might be actually very interesting, but I don't know how high the attack is from the Chimera. Maybe you have to place decrease attack so these debuffs do not get resisted. But for Arena, I think she's a sheep magnet with, the buff strip, the weaken, the true fear. It's like two or three effects or debuffs that can trigger the sheep blessing, but still a very solid skill. Then we have this passive, which is probably the most important part about this champion, because she deals 15% more damage for each dead ally. So if you're in the arena with 4 champions, you have 3 dead allies, you get 45% more damage. That's really a lot. Each critical hit boosts this champion's turn meter by 10% for each dead ally, and that's basically what happens in the event dungeon when we try to solo Kurosa. We nuke the ads, and then she transforms, and every time she crits, she will get 40% more turn meter because all the 4 allies are dead. And if she crits like 3 times in a row, she will take an extra turn and outlap your self heal, and then your team is basically wiping. Now, in the arena, you only have 3 allies that, could be potentially dead. So you will get 45% more damage and 30% per hit if all allies are dead. And I think that's basically how you want to use her. So let's play this out. So obviously, you want to build her with Stone Skin. You want her to survive, right? You want her to be the last man standing, so to speak. Let's build her with Stone Skin and let's say Lightning Cage or whatever, and maybe even Stone Skin Feral or something. Maybe you can get away with that because you don't want her to get bombed. You don't want her to get, nuked. So the Stone Skin prevents a lot of damage. The Feral, the immunity buff, prevents bombs. If it doesn't get stripped, the Lightning Cage should protect those buffs. And I think that's the way you want to build her so she survives until the end. Swaps forms if everybody else is dead, and then you do your thing. Basically, you can, you want basically everybody else to take a turn before she transforms. Everybody from the enemies. Then all the Stone Skin buffs and all these things are gone, and you can basically, place a shatter and increase crit rate on her, place a true fear, hopefully not get sheeped, get an extra turn, and then if needed, you can buff strip and hit them with the AoE, and I think this will hit quite hard. The only thing that I don't like about the skill is that she doesn't place the weaken before she hits. I mean, maybe she does, I don't know, but here it says before attacking steals all buffs, and then places weaken. So I don't know if she does it before she attacks or after. I have to check in the event dungeon. We can probably see it there, but I think she's stealing the buffs, doing the hit, and then placing weaken. So yeah, if this hits hard, I can see this being very, very useful. But I think the crazy part about this champion is this A1. I think this is probably the best thing about this champion, because every time she crits, if the allies are dead, she will get so much turn meter and probably get another turn. I mean, with 3 dead allies, she will get 30% more turn meter per each ally. Maybe you can boost that up with some gemstones or something. And, so she gets a little bit more turn meter, get back to 100% turn meter, and then go again. Maybe you can use this Ruthless Agent skill, use the A1, kill one enemy, get enough turn meter so you take another turn, then use the AoE hit. Something like that. Maybe that's how it will play out. But you got to make sure that she survives. And I think that's probably the hardest part about this champion. She doesn't have a lot of survivability. She does get less damage on her passive for each alive ally. So that basically, already reduces her incoming damage while all your other allies are taking, the normal damage. So that's already a good passive, but I don't know if she can survive, the current arena meta. You probably have to play out all your defense sets on her that you can, maybe with a Necrit, she can survive, you know, build her with feral, stone skin, something like that. I think that that's probably the way to go. Depends on how hard she hits. Maybe the shatter buff and a cat's gaze will be enough damage for her, so she doesn't need to be in a lethal or savage for that additional defense ignore. So yeah, I think overall she does look very good. Now I'm very curious how hard this A1 can hit, especially for like dungeons. I can see her really speeding up a lot of teams. Fire Knight, right, with a free hitter on an A1, max HP damage, with ally attacks. She will probably delete a lot of bosses without a problem. And I think for PvE, she might be very solid. This is basically like a nude A3, just as that she doesn't heal herself with it, but still, it's on an A1. She will do it every time you use an ally attack, and that is pretty insane to me. So yeah, on paper, she looks awesome. She's very annoying in the event dungeon to deal with. She deals a lot of damage, but that doesn't that doesn't mean that she will be, you know, the same for Arena, Hydra, and Chimera, and all these other areas. But we will see. So I'm very curious to see how she will play out. If she will improve, you know, Hydra scores, Chimera scores, or how she will perform in the arena. I'm very curious. I'm looking forward to see some testing. And yeah, we will see. But still, in my opinion, I think there are still a lot of meta champions that I would prefer personally to pull, like Commodus, Galathier, Toshiro. I would probably prefer them instead of Kurosa. Now, if you already have all these other mythicals, I can understand if you go for this 10x. But if not, I don't know if, you know, if I would prefer Corrosa over the others. I think they did a great job with buffing mythicals. Galeas is very solid now. A lot of people use him in the arena. He's actually usable now. That was not the case before. You like all the people that pulled him were kind of annoyed, right? Ashna had a very solid buff. It's kind of like countering this Vulcanos meta, and also very good for the event dungeon. You know, all the extra damage. People use him in Hydra teams and so on. So none of these buffs were actually bad lately. So you know, if Kurosa is not good at the moment, she will definitely get a good buff in the future. I'm very sure of that. And there are still some other champions that might get buffed before that, like Fiored, for example. He's pretty bad. Probably one of the worst ones, besides Aphidus, maybe. I don't know who else might be up there, but yeah, so one or two champions might get buffed before her. Mesomel, maybe. Mesomel is kind of a niche pick here and there, but yeah, so you get what I'm saying, right? Like, there's not going to be a mythical that cannot be used. It will just take some time if this champion is bad until this champion gets a buff. So yeah, I don't have a lot of primal shards. I have one primal shard left. I'm not going to open mine for this. I'm maybe like 20, 30 primal shards of Mercy. Theoretically, I could hit Mercy if I wanted to, but I don't really want to. Also, we have a Summer Rush tomorrow, and it's part of the Demon Slayer Titan event, so you can get those demon points in there. And if you skipped the champ chase last weekend and you want to get that 5-star soul, you're probably not able to skip this Summer Rush. So I'm definitely going to pull some shards. Also, you can see it here. You can get some crafting materials for the event relics. So I'm definitely going to open some shards and try to get those event relic crafting materials and the demon points. So yeah. Today we have the Dungeon Divers event, a gear enhancement event. So I'm going to, dump some energy into the event dungeon tournament or the event dungeon. I have to get like, I want to get this Immortal Soul Stone. I could theoretically stop here. It's not really necessary to get this last reward, but you can't get enough soul stones. And it's kind of like the one thing that I'm lacking. It's like good souls, so I want to maximize my chances. And then the spider tournament started today. And here you can actually only use champions from demon spawns. And there are actually quite a few options how to do this. Basically, I would go with the HP burn route, so you can, you know, for example, just use this Doom Tower Epic, which is Akov, and he can place this HP burn. Also, there will be a champion training tournament from tomorrow, also part of the Demon Slayer Titan event. Currently, I'm at 520 points. I think I collected all of the demon points that were possible to get. And yeah, I could theoretically skip 250, so maybe I will skip the Summer Rush tomorrow, depending on how many points are in there. But I also want the crafting materials for the relics, so I don't know. Maybe I'll skip something else instead. Really depends on what's coming next. Maybe it's the Champ Train tournament that I'm going to skip, since it's only epic crafting material. But I don't really want to skip tournaments or events that give you, you know, crafting materials. So maybe it's even the spider tournament, as it's not, you know, not giving me any crafting materials, is only rewarding the 50 points, and I can basically skip 250. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for this video. If you are going for Kurosa, I wish you the best of luck. I hope you get her. If you want to get her or something else that is amazing, I don't think there is or there will be a bad mythical champion at this point. I think pretty much all of them are very usable for Faction Wars Hard. Without mythical champions, it can get really tough. So yeah, I think all of them are good to have. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed, please subscribe to the channel. Also, hit the thumbs up. It really helps me. And see you in the next one.